Hi, I'm attorney Jeremy Huss. When must a person provide identification to the police? Arizona law requires a person to produce their ID when requested by police if the officer has reasonable suspicion to believe a person is involved in criminal activity or a traffic violation. So, if a police officer just randomly walks up to a person on the street and asks for ID, the person need not produce the ID and could just walk away. However, if the officer has reasonable suspicion of a crime, the officer may detain and frisk the person. The person would be required by law to show identification to the police in this scenario. Let's talk in more specifics about the times a person is required to show the police their identification. Arizona Revised Statute 28-1595 is a civil traffic statute that requires a driver of a motor vehicle involved in a traffic stop to display their driver's license upon request of a law enforcement officer. Simply put, if police stop a driver for a civil traffic violation, the police have a right to ask the driver to produce their driver's license, and the driver is legally required to display or produce it. There is no relying on a right or refusing to produce the license here. If the officer has lawfully conducted a traffic stop, the driver must comply with the request. If a driver does not comply, police may detain the driver for a reasonable amount of time in order to establish identity through other means. Arizona's Stop and Identify law is under Arizona Revised Statute 13-2412. This law requires a person suspected of committing a crime or civil traffic violation to provide their name, address, and date of birth to the police upon request. For the police to suspect a person of committing a crime or civil traffic violation, they must have reasonable suspicion. Basically, if police have reasonable suspicion a person has committed, is committing, or is about to commit a crime or civil traffic violation, the officer may detain the person and request the person's name, address, and date of birth. The person is required to provide their true full name, but is not required to answer any other questions. It is important to note that this law applies only when a person is detained due to reasonable suspicion. Again, if a person is not suspected of committing a crime or traffic violation, they are generally not required to provide their ID upon law enforcement request. Refusing to provide ID or a true full name is failing to comply with a lawful order of a police officer under Arizona Revised Statute 13-3903. This is a Class 2 misdemeanor and carries misdemeanor consequences. Anytime a person is lawfully contacted by the police, either through a traffic stop or an investigation supported by reasonable suspicion, the person must provide their full true name and their identification. It is important to note that police asking for a person's name and ID without reasonable suspicion of a crime should result in the person walking away from the police. Nobody should ever consent to a conversation or search from law enforcement.